Tell me, when did you start this?
We started in 2008. We started with auditions to look for actors to be in the troupe, and that was in late fall, and then we ended up starting in January 2009 performing at 6th Street Playhouse.
And how many people are in the troupe?
There's like 11, I believe, at this point.
That is a huge troupe of people. Are they there all the time? The same group every time, or is it kind of rotating players?
It's the same group of people, but we don't always do all the shows. Sometimes we have a smaller group of people on a certain show.
I got to go to one and be a celebrity, quote unquote, judge, which was really
Local
fun.
Celebrity.
And it was great. I love improv. I love the spur of the moment thing. What attracted you to improv?
I got very excited about improv when I went to BATS one time. That stands for Bay Area Theater Sports down in San Francisco. They're kind of like the gold standard of improv in the Bay Area. They've been doing it for like 25 years or something, and it's so incredibly creative. When you see people making up things on the stage, you just realize, wow, this is amazing what humans can actually do. And also the feeling of connectedness in the audience when everyone is in this friendly environment and everyone's shouting out suggestions and some of them are getting incorporated. It's just a really special event that's very different than traditional theater.
So I have to ask, have you been stumped?
Have I been stumped?
Yes.
In which sense? Like
doing
not
improv
coming up with a good
yeah,
idea?
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud to say that I think we've never had like a bad show. You know, we've had better ones, but we've never felt like, oh, boy, did we blow it, which is kind of unusual because a lot of troupes work together for several years before they actually start performing, but we didn't. We just worked together for like 3 months and then we started doing shows right away. So the only reason I think we could really pull it off is we have a lot of experienced players already in the troupe.
When you say you worked together, do you, obviously you're not rehearsing improv, but do you guys get together and kind of work out, or how does that?
Right, yeah, we get together once a week and we play all kinds of improv games, which means we set up certain rules and then we practice listening, what we call making offers of endowing each other with different character traits or saying parts of the story, and then the other person has to respond. So we just practice really listening to each other and getting into our creative spirit.
So you get together once a week, and then how often are shows over at 6th Street?
Right now, about once a month. Sometimes we do more than one show, but generally once a month.
So I know there's a bunch of different improv games.
Yes.
And do you have a particular favorite, or is there one that always kills, and so you make sure it's in every show?
Well, one of my favorites is what we call the Gauntlet. I think we actually borrowed it from the Improvaholics, and it incorporates the idea of using a verbal restriction. So the game has some sort of element that has to do with language. And what the Gauntlet is it has one restriction after another. So we start with something like the alphabet game, where we have to each respond with a sentence starting with A, and then B, and then C. Then we switch into like a one-word sentences. Then we switch into a game where you can only ask questions. Then we switch into one called alliteration, where every single word in every sentence has to start with the same letter. And we usually end up with Dr. Seuss, so everything has to kind of sound like it's Dr. Seuss rhyme. And I like those kind of verbal games a lot.
So can you tell us about the different forms of improv?
Yeah, well, we've got short form and long form. There's also something called the Herald. So short form are basically these little games which have to do with physical restrictions or verbal restrictions, or maybe they involve music. There's another game called, for instance, Sit, Stand, Lie, where one player always has to be sitting or standing or laying down, and then if one person moves into a different position, the other person has to justify why they're moving into another position. And those are the kinds of things you're going to see in a theater sports match. And then long form would be making up a whole story, maybe a 40-minute long story. That's a series of scenes, and we have no idea how the story will end. But we just start building it and just see what happens. A herald is related to that, but they often have certain forms where maybe there'll be a lot of brainstorming about a certain theme from the beginning, with the audience giving ideas and players giving ideas, and then those ideas that are kind of floating in the ether will end up informing how the story goes.
Wow. Do you have a favorite form, personally?
I think my favorite is improvised musical theater.
Wow.
That was our last show. We made up a story that ended up being called Sweeney Dog. That was a suggestion from the audience, and it kind of wove in some Sweeney Todd themes, but it wasn't Sweeney Todd itself. And so we'll act part of it, and then we'll break into song, and we'll incorporate numbers of songs. And we're very, very lucky because our musical accompanist is Wynn Meyerson, who played on Whose Line Is It Anyway on television, and he's one of the best in the industry, so we're super.
What else do they have at 6th Street when it comes to improv? Because I know it's not just your show.
Right. At 6th Street Playhouse, we also have improv for kids and also improv for adults, taught by really fabulous teachers. And it's kind of like on the school calendar. People can sign up every fall or every spring for the improv classes. And there's a website, www.sixthstreetplayhouse.com. And I think there's an education tab there where they can see all the schedules for the classes. I also wanted to mention about what it feels like to be at an improv show. A lot of people maybe can't imagine quite what it's like. It's very different than traditional theater, where sometimes there's a little bit of awkwardness and there's this real feeling of the fourth wall, the actors and the audience. But in an improv show, the audience really becomes part of the event. There's a kind of a communal feeling when we ask the audience to shout out their ideas. And we often even ask the audience to turn to someone next to them and say hello and get to meet the person. And we just break through all the ice.
I love that.
And it's really thrilling, kind of like what you were saying before, like a sports event, because you don't know how it will end. The actors don't know, the audience doesn't know. And so everyone's a little bit on the edge of their seat, just waiting to see how is this going to turn out. And
so
also, of course, there's lots of laughter. There's always tons of laughter. And so that just makes you feel good, too.
Yeah, sad improv is not good.
No.
Yeah, and I could just see how there would be lots of laughter because you have so much energy. Everybody I talked to about you before coming to do this interview said she is just a ball of fire.
Oh,
so,
wow,
yeah,
thanks.
And in a good way, I said that. But yeah, it was really great. I'm glad that you're doing this. I'm glad that 6th Street is keeping it going because we really need this up here in this area.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I saw it in San Francisco. I was like, whoa, let's do it in Santa Rosa. Why not? And we have a special license that's actually kind of restricted license to do the theater sports. So no one else around here can do it, but we got permission, So now we're doing it, offering it to the local community.
That's great. And free parking up here.
Free parking.
No bridge toll.
Great restaurants in the Railroad Square district all around the theater.
I see no reason not to go.
No, come, please try it out.
Great.